An impossible pie from 1969. Some things are naturally impossible, like perpetual motion or happy AT&T customers. But apparently this pie makes itself. First you get your blender. It's good to be back. Then simply add a half cup of butter, cup of sugar, 2 cups of moo juice, oh god, 4 eggs, cup of shredded coconut, half a cup of flour, and some vanilla. Now we blend, cause why not? Let's hope this doesn't kill the blender. And that's it. While this bakes, it apparently forms its own crust and layers. I have my doubts. 350 for an hour. Done! Enough! Cool. And then to the fridge. Hello? Impossible! It did it. Formed its own pie. Coconut and vanilla. How did that work? You crazy old people. Secret cornbread from 87. Now I want you to try and guess what the third ingredient in this bread is because I can guarantee you're not gonna get it. It's an easy 3-2-1 recipe, so we're gonna start with 3 eggs beat, followed by 2 boxes of Jiffy cornbread mix. Let me in. Finally, 1 entire 15-ounce jar of Cheese Whiz. Oh, no. Heat it up first because it currently resembles silicone. I'm really looking forward to this. Oh no! Cheesy, alright. Cheese Whiz. And into a well-greased 9x13. It's extraterrestrial. Be sure to smooth it out. Thank you, I'd hate to have an uneven disaster. That would be terrible. Bake at 375 until golden brown. 20 to 25 minutes. My cookbook, Baking Yesteryear, is officially out today. Yes, the time has come. You know, I'm scared because this smells good. Woo! Seriously, this is killer. If you don't believe me, try it. This is dangerous. A baked bean pizza from 1954. Now, I'm scared of lots of things, including the IRS, clowns, and English majors. But I'm most afraid of beans where they don't belong. Oh dear. The sauce begins with a can of tomato paste. Plus 8 ounces of spaghetti sauce. Really starting out on the wrong foot. More like the wrong limb. Add oregano for an authentic taste. I feel like I'm in Italy. For the crust, we squashed together refrigerator biscuits. Sorry, what were you saying about authentic? On goes the sauce. A bit of Parmesan. Now 20 ounces of baked beans. What part of Italy are you from? Kentucky? In the center, some fresh mozzarella. How to get an entire country to hate you. Step 1. This. $4.25 for 10, then $3.25 for 20. No. We can serve this with anchovies or sardines. How about a swift death? Oh, what? What is wrong with you? You are sick! It's just vile. Rolo Ritz sandwiches from 79. I'll tell you, I wasn't gonna do this one because it seems rather pedestrian, unlike cars. First up, we'll be needing some crackers. We've got some in a box here and 1 in a t-shirt. Use as many as you'd like. Come on. This feels familiar. Lay half face down on a baking sheet. Get some Rolos. Throw them on the floor. Please remove the wrappers. Aluminium has no nutritional value. And you just place them on top. Then we bake at 350 just until they're soft, around 3 minutes. But keep an eye on them. Yours may get softer sooner depending on your level of arousal. Did you know my book comes out soon? Of course you did. I never shut up about it. Woo! Toasty. Then we carefully sandwich. This has no right being this satisfying. Yeah! Yes. They're perfect. Not because they're gourmet or anything special. They're just a really good idea. A really good tasting idea. Broiled humdingers from 1967. Don't ask. This is a Spam recipe, one of mid-century America's favorite things, right up there next to big cars and being prejudiced. First up, we put our can of Spam in a blender. It's gonna be one of those days, huh? Perfect. If this red flag was any bigger, it would be a blanket. To the ground Spam, we add a teaspoon of mustard, plus 2 tablespoons of ketchup, which is spelled catsup. Why? 1/4 cup of moo juice and a half cup of oats. I just don't understand. Are there worse things than this? Doubt it. You know, jokes aside, I'm quite disturbed by this. The next step is to strain our can of halved peaches. Of course it is. The epitome of logic. I think I'm becoming jaded. Peaches onto a baking sheet. Form some patties. Squish. Broil these on the top rack for 10 minutes. Maybe they'll disappear. Well, some didn't make it, which is unfortunate because it means some did. Well, that was utterly horrendous. Thank you. Peanut brittle from 1909. Now, I ain't never did a peanut brittle, but I done been heard of it before. 3 cups of Spanish peanuts. What are Spanish peanuts? Well, like other Europeans, these still have the skins on. Now into a saucepan goes 2 cups of sugar, 1 cup of the newly invented corn syrup, it's witchcraft, and a half cup of water. Mixy, mixy. Now we cook this to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Fire! Bubble, bubble! Once we reach that temperature, the firm ball stage, we add in the nuts. I don't know what a firm ball is, but they should probably see a doctor. Oh! Keep stirring until we reach 300 degrees, at which point we remove from heat and add in a bit of butter and a pinch of baking soda. Who needs measurements? Off! Butter! Now quickly, we need a pinch. How much is the pinch? I don't know! Whoa! Creamy! And quickly onto a prepared baking sheet! That was very stressful. Now we just let this cool as you read my cookbook. Please! Last instruction is a simple one, but it's a little bit barbaric. It would seem you don't have to quite apply that much force. There's peanut brittle in the dining room. Never thought I'd be busting nuts on camera, but here we are. Oh, You know, this is pretty good, but you gotta have some strong chompers. Oh. 'Tis distinctly old-fashioned, take that how you will. Though if you're allergic to peanuts, that's one hell of a way to go out. Peanut butter bread from the Great Depression. Now, the Depression was rough, and while some people like it that way, the world of baking didn't. Butter, sugar, and eggs were scarce, but there was shelf-stable peanut butter. Start with 2 cups of flour, a pinch of salt, only a 1/4 cup of sugar, and 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Is that a typo? We want the bread to rise, not generate thrust. On this episode of Bread Goes to Space, mix. In goes 1 1/3 cup of moo juice. That's milk. Now the 1/2 cup of peanut butter. You know, Peter Pan came out in 1928. Brave king. I waited until 2019. Get him. Fold. I don't know about this. There's not much to it. Meow. Bake at 325 for about 1 hour and 10 minutes. Well, it smells divine. That's a good crumb. Man. This is stellar. It's perfectly peanut buttery and sweet. So good with so little. This is why I bake. A chocolate syrup cake from '87. Now there's many uses for chocolate syrup in the kitchen and a few in the bedroom. But does it make a good cake? We begin with a 1/2 cup of butter, creamed with a cup of sugar. 4 egg vanilla mix. And now for 1 1/2 cups of chocolate syrup. Seems excessive. It's a lot of syrup. Leave it to the Americans. If it looks like oil, it must be good. Dry ingredients are 1 1/3 cups of flour and a 1/2 teaspoon of floof powder. Good. Ooh, it's actually quite a nice batter. We'll need a greased 9-inch. You heard me. It smells good. I mean, no, it's wrong. We bake at 325 for around 1 hour. Check yours with a toothpick. You know, our book's out this month. This month. Go look at it. Whoa! Grease your pan well. Mine almost stuck. The icing is just a cup of powdered sugar, adding syrup until thick. What kind of Yankee Doodle dandy shit? Why do you look good? Senseless. I'm going to hemorrhage. I'll tell you what. That is a solid easy cake. Darn good idea. Cheers. Milcorno from the Great Depression. What is the cheapest food? Was the question asked at the height of the Depression. So food scientists at Cornell came up with this. We start with a cup of cornmeal. So far so good. Then a 1/2 cup of powdered milk. That didn't last long. Teaspoon of salt. Mix into a saucepan with 3 cups of water. Chunky. Bring to a prolonged boil. Fire! Just how prolonged is this boil? It's done. Now, if this were to be your dinner, you'd add some tomato sauce and some pepper. For dessert, a touch of molasses and cinnamon. Tastes like a wet blanket. They're all so sad, like depressed polenta. Oatmeal that needs therapy. Unemployed grits. Strawberry fluffies from '76. Like my hookup, some baking trends just come and go. It is what it is. And one of those trends was to bake something with as little effort as possible. First, we'll need a box of strawberry cake mix. I don't like boxes. People get buried in them. It's pink. Then we just shove in a tub of Cool Whip. As you can see, this recipe is quite approachable, unlike landmines. Stir it up like some good drama. We might say we like our friends, but we can't stand them. Smelling a little fruity. I'm partial to fruitiness. I am. Okay. Finally, we scoop, then into powdered sugar. And place. 350 for about 12 minutes. See this book? I righted it. Wrote it myself. You know, these don't look very fluffy. Oh. But they taste fluffy. Insanely soft. Ooh. Loses points for laziness, but soft, fruity, and good. A Valentine's cream pie from '59. Now I can't think of anything better for Valentine's Day than a good old-fashioned cream pie. And this one features the maraschino cherry pastry. Hello. Goodbye. For the pie pan, we're going to want a 9-inch. I know I do too. If you've got one, don't just force it in. Be gentle. Now whether or not to edge is up to you. Some people aren't that patient. Blind bake at 425 for 15 minutes. This finished a bit early. Happens to the best of us. Into a saucepan goes a cup of sugar, quarter cup cornstarch, 2 eggs, 2 cups of moo juice, quarter cup of cherry juice. Hopefully it'll be pink. Bring this to a boil and stir constantly. Fire! If your hand gets tired, just keep going. I'm single, so I'm used to it. Once it's thickened, we remove from heat and add in a half cup of chopped cherries. In you go! To the fridge. Next, a cup of cream whipped. Some people are into that. Now we get to top. That's always fun. I like that. Very sweet, but I like it. Onion soup bread from 68. Now, soup's lovely if you're sick or born before 1912, but it's typically not used to make bread. Typically. Now, we start with 3 1/3 cups of flour, which is normal. Then we add in 2 envelopes of onion soup mix, which is like a sliding glass door. Unhinged. Half a teaspoon of baking soda. Next up, 2 cups of buttermilk. Get in! In goes a cup of cheddar cheese. I tell you, cheese makes everything better, except car accidents. Trust me, I've tried. Police got very mad. To a greased loaf pan, cooperate, a bit more cheese on top. Then bake at 350 for 50 to 60 minutes. Can I tell you about my cookbook? Oh, that's fair. It smells amazing. Look at that. This slaps. It is a banging, savory, cheesy bread. That's great. A very good idea. A Hoover stew from the Great Depression. Now it stands to reason that this dish was named after the 31st President of the United States, a vacuum. This was the economical way to feed your family during a time where people were pinching pennies until Lincoln wept. Water! Salt! Fire! In goes a pound of macaroni. Now we slice a pound of hot dogs as thin as coins. Ah yes, brings back memories. Time to drain the pasta. Into a large pot goes 2 pounds of stewed tomatoes, pound of canned corn and the juice. Add in the hot dogs and simmer for 10 minutes. Dylan, you say, did people not have spices in the Great Depression? No, they didn't. Refer to depression. This is so much food. Yep. Is it bland? Yes. Is it bad? No. Especially when you consider that all of this cost me $6. Impressive. Prune whip from 1927. Now, if you've never had a prune, good. It's best not to engage with the enemy. Prunes are just plums post-mortem. The Draugr of the fruit kingdom. Start with 15 of them all chopped up nice and disgusting. I love it here. Why 15 of them? Why any of them? Why prune? How prune? Then into a pan to be cooked with a half cup of water. Fire! See, prunes are primarily used because they're a stellar laxative. You say, Dylan, how else are they used? Threateningly. Now we strain it and let it cool down, preferably forever, never coming back. And into a bowl goes the whites of 2 eggies. Pinch of salt, beating stiff. Cup of sugar. Ooh! And we fold in a bit of vanilla and our cooled prunes into a serving dish, well chilled. My cookbook. Garnished with slivered almonds. You say, Dylan, that's not cooked. Correct. Uncooked whips such as these were very popular in the 20s, alongside dysentery. Good heavens. Oh no! This is foul. Oh dear. Magic cinnamon sticks from 63. So this recipe finds a good use for ready-made pie crust mix. But of course you could use any leftover pie pastry you have or make your own if you enjoy that type of low-level anxiety. 1 pie crust mix. And this one needs 5 tablespoons of cold water. You gotta mix it with your fingies. Done! Roll this into a thin rectangle. Now we sprinkle some coarse sugar on both sides, pressing it in with your rolling pin. I like sugar. Get in! Now into 3 tablespoons of melted butter goes 6 teaspoons of cinnamon mix. And then on it goes. This is very satisfying. I like you. Fold this in half and cut into strips. They're so cute. Now twist and onto a baking sheet. We bake these at 350 for about 20 minutes. Oh, yeah. Oh, like a cookie. Hold on. I'm going to eat all of these. A cheat lemon pie from 79. So this pie says it can be finished in 2 seconds, something I think is quite impressive, yet other lovers find deeply unsatisfying. You can't win them all. Start with a can of sweetened condensed milk. Ooh. Then a whole can of thawed lemonade concentrate. You find these in the freezer section because they're frozen. Pour it in. Mix. The acid is thickening. Fold in a tub of Cool Whip. Get it! Woo. Finally, into 2 pre-made graham cracker crusts. Oh, yes. To the freezer. Don't worry, I'm not going to speak about my cookbook. Nope, not me. Good morning. By the way, this cost me $5. In this economy, $2.50 a pie ain't bad. Oh, look it. Okay. This is out of the park. It's a frozen pie, but it's silky smooth. Oh. A poor man's pie from 1949. Now this has to be the simplest pie recipe I've seen during my time on this earth. I'm not even sure this is going to make a pie. But first, pastry. Good afternoon, Mr. Pastry. How you been? How's the wife? How you like that? Welcome to the real world. For the filling, we have a pint of cream, cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of flour, and that's it. If this is a pie filling, then I'm Captain America. And then in it goes. We do get to sprinkle nutmeg on top. How extravagant. In this goes at 425 until it sets like a custard. I have no idea. It looks upset. Well, it's great. So long as you don't have to eat it. It's sweet goop. I don't get it. Because now I'm still a poor man just with a mediocre pie. Lime Jello fudge from 68. Typically fudge involves chocolate, and on the rare occasion it doesn't, it definitely shouldn't have Jello in it. Into a saucepan goes 3.5 cups of sugar. That was half the bag. 1/4 teaspoon of soda. 10-4, good buddy. Plus 3 ounces of lime Jello. You ready for a party? Fruity. 1.5 of moo juice. That's milk, by the way. Then we cook to 234 degrees Fahrenheit. Oh, it's foaming. Please stop growing. Oh, stop. Avast ye. Ow. Ow. It's got ranged attacks. I don't like this. Almost. Keep stirring all the way. Then remove from heat and into a bowl. 1/2 cup of butter. Beat until thick. Thick. And into a greased and lined 8-inch. What is this? Chill until firm. Do you know what's already firm? My cookbook. It's a hardcover. Oh. It tastes like summer camp, like baby bottle pop nostalgic. Avocado bread from 73. Yes, it seems that before millennials discovered avocado on toast, their forefathers wanted to skip a few steps and just put the avocado directly in the bread. We're gonna see if they were onto something. Of course, they were onto a lot of things back then. We begin with 2 very ripe avocados. Time to open you up. Good morning. Now in goes 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So the avocado is the only source of fat in this recipe, so instead of creaming sugar into butter, we're just creaming the fruit, which is something I happen to be familiar with. Time for 3 eggs. Beat thoroughly. For the dry ingredients, we mix together 2 cups of flour with 1.5 teaspoons of floof powder. That's baking powder. Combine the 2, fold, in you go. We seem to be baking guacamole. 350 for about 45 to 50 minutes. Wow, look at how good it looks. Woo! No way. Woo! This tastes amazing. I'm so confused. Because there's no butter, there's no oil, there's no milk, just fruit. Sprinkle cookies from 1980. Now I relate to sprinkles because they're dainty, frivolous, and let's face it, just a little bit limp-wristed. All the things I was called in high school. And now, a cup of butter. Only a 1/4 cup of sugar, plus 1/2 cup of sweetened condensed milk. Interesting. And yes, I know I can spray the cup to make it easier to come out, but I didn't come out easily. Why should the milk have it easy? A tablespoon of Nilla. Are you trying to marry me? Nilla. Beat. Now for 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of floof powder. Finally, we need in 1.5 cups of sprinkles. Cups? You say, Dylan, that's a lot of sprinkles. I say, congratulations. You're very shrewd. This is daft. What is this? Oh, scoop. Dip in more sprinkles. More sprinkles than flour. 325 for about 15 minutes. Did I tell you I have a cookbook? It's gonna be fun. Oh, yes. These are like the best birthday cake cookies. Pound cake from 1904. Pound cake is one of my favorite things to do, but I'm single, so it's been a while. It's called such because the traditional recipe is a pound each of butter, sugar, eggs, and flour. Nothing else. We start by beating the butter. Now we slowly cream in a pound of sugar. Oh boy! Now I'm beating and creaming by hand because, as any man could tell you, that's how we all first learned. Good heavens! How many eggs? 9. We beat them in gradually. This is wild. And finally, the flour. Fold into a bunt. We bake this in a moderately slow oven for 80 to 100 minutes. Hello? I really just JFK'd this cake. Man, that's wonderful. For something that doesn't have any flavoring at all, you would not believe it. With a texture like nothing else. It's very good. But we don't talk about this. Another dump cake from 87. So I've actually already taken a dump in this kitchen before. We have a done dump. But instead of using chocolate cake and cherries, I was told I should have used yellow cake and peaches. So let's take a dump. Directly into an oiled casserole dish goes 2 21-ounce cans of peaches and syrup, draining the syrup from one of them. Uh-oh. Today's dump requires the use of a can opener. It's a fairly painful condition. Then you dump! My bad for assuming there was only one way to take a dump. The Americans are rather imaginative. Dump! Frank, can you guess what we do with our box of cake mix? That's right! You dump! Last year we dumped on melted butter, but this recipe just has us put it on top. 3/4 of a cup. Boop. Then we bake our dump at 350 for about an hour. You can also dump my cookbook in your cart. Sorry. Ooh! Let it cool. Yeah, this is superior, but I still detest the concept. It's a loveless peach cobbler. Widowed and forlorn. The dump cake from 68. So post-World War II saw the invention of the cake mix, but for some Americans that was still too much work. And so the dump cake was invented. Let's take a dump. Directly into an oiled baking dish goes 20 ounces of pie filling. Goodbye, cherries! Then we just dump cake mix on top. This is sacrilegious, preposterous, daft. Melt a cup of butter. And you just dump that on too. Then you get to bake your dump. Golly gee! $3.75 for 50 minutes. This is for people who hate baking. And I don't like those people. We have a done dump. It's fresh. Fresh dump. It's an unenthusiastic cobbler. I mean, yeah, it's all right, but it's all wrong. If you're going to bake, bake. A cake should be an occasion, not a disfigured dump on a plate. Magic oatmeal cookies from 85. Not only are these a 2-ingredient cookie, but they also purport to be healthy. First, we take a very ripe banana. This one is passed away, gone, very nearly flaccid, dead. We mash. Nanner, no longer. And then we throw in just about a cup of quick oats. That's it. This is not a cookie. This is a wrong way to make oatmeal. But wait, it says we can also do this with a half cup of applesauce and the cup of quick oats. Just scoop them out, then we squish them. Banana on the right. $3.50 for about 15 minutes. But just watch yours. Did I tell you that my book has a metallic title? I'm a simple man. What? Smells good. Let's do applesauce first. What? That's a cookie. Huh. Now banana. Banana is superior. Sorry. I guess everything's a cookie now. These are really fun and easy. For a healthy cookie, not bad. Avocado ice cream from 1947. This is fascinating because it seems chronologically wrong to find this in a 1940s cookbook, which means it must be pretty special or that time-traveling keto athleisure influencers exist. You know, people who follow strange concepts like exercise. Into a saucepan goes a half cup of sugar, a pinch of salt, and 2 cups of milk. Moon juice! Now we scald this, so bring it to a simmer but not a boil. Fire! Into a separate bowl goes 2 eggs. Beat. While whisking, we cook the eggs by slowly pouring in the hot milk. In goes a cup of heavy cream and 2 avocados mashed. I'm going to force mine through a sieve. And finally, the juice of a lemon. Beat thoroughly. And just freeze until firm. Good morning. Am I really about to have ice cream for breakfast? It's destiny. Ooh. Whoa! Yes, that works. It's really quite nice. It is a bit icy, more of a sherbet, but it's a no-churn, so I can't complain. It is a lovely, delicate taste. Panko cookies from 85. It's been said that there's a cookie for every occasion, and if so, this must be the cookie for when you descend into psychosis. Start with a half cup of butter, followed by a half cup of powdered sugar. Next is 2 teaspoons of vanilla and 1 teaspoon of almond extract. Distilled nut. Finally, 3/4 of a cup of flour and 3/4 of a cup of panko, the breadcrumbs. You say, Dylan, why would someone put breadcrumbs in cookie dough? It could be because of like illicit substances or like psychiatric disturbances, being held at gunpoint, these types of things. Then we scoop, roll, dredge in more powdered sugar, and squish. $3.50 for about 13 minutes. Do not put my cookbook in the oven though, it's flammable. Hello! Once they're cool, we dredge in powdered sugar again. Was the first time just for practice? This person is genius. Because I figured out how to make something soft, chewy, and crunchy at the same time. It's a marvel. It's good cooking. Liver cakes from 1947. So the liver is an organ which collects and filters all of the toxins from an animal throughout their lifetime. So why we prance about and eat it is beyond me. With that being said, I've never tried it. Until now. Into a pot of water goes a pound of calf's liver. This recipe asks for calf or mutton liver. But when I asked about mutton liver to the butcher, he just asked if I was okay. Fire! While that boils, we need a quarter cup of breadcrumbs, flour, salt, pepper, plus dried sage, and onion. Then we drain the... What? I don't want to do this! Mince the liver. Ugh. You know, I used to have a sock like this. This is disgusting. 2 eggs. Get in. Now we make patties. What do you think we fry these in? Lard. Let me get my lard bucket. Then you just... lemon large with liver and lard. There's something deviant about this. Tastes like metal. I don't like that. Marshmallow bark from 79. The good thing about this recipe is it seems quick and easy, but the bad thing is that it comes from the state of Missouri. What goes on in Missouri? First, we assemble a double boiler. I'm good at this. Then we melt 12 ounces of white chocolate, either in bar form or a bag of chips. I'm using Ghirardelli bars because I prefer to rot my teeth expensively. Fire! Yes, you could just melt your chocolate in the microwave, but that makes too much sense. Why be practical when you can give the illusion of competency? We also need to add in about a tablespoon of vegetable shortening. You can also use coconut oil. While that melts, we measure out 4 cups of multicolored marshmallows. Woo! Be pretty. Okay, now that this is ready, we're just gonna let it cool down for a little bit so it doesn't just immediately melt the marshmallows. You ready yet? Combine and mix. And into a lightly greased and lined casserole dish. Making sure everything's even and coated. To the fridge! My cookbook for scale. Quite pleasant, really. It's a bit basic, but the kids will love it. Sweet and simple and Eastery. Clam biscuits from 1974. Now I love biscuits and I love clams, but do they belong together? Well, as my parents tried explaining to a 12-year-old me when they divorced, probably not. We begin with 2 cups of flour, 3 teaspoons of floof powder, then 2 tablespoons of shortening. Vegetable shortenings are great for when you want something like butter, but worse. Please get off the spoon. Please, sir. Mix with hands. In goes a ½ cup of moo juice, then a can of minced clams. Little strange, fam, but you do you. Yep, those are clams. Oh, it wants the juice, too. Mix. Drop these into a muffin pan. So are they biscuits or are they muffins? What are you? That's what I used to ask my sexuality in high school. Hello. Butter. I see. I'm getting a top note of cat food, like someone dropped a biscuit in a fish tank. Yeah, those taste like low tide. That is to say, New Englanders would love it. Deep fried cream eggs from 96. Yes, Easter is upon us, which means sweet tooths are at a fever pitch. However, I think this is going too far. All we do is make a batter of 3/4 cups of flour, ½ teaspoon of floof powder, big pinch of salt, plus a tablespoon of sugar, and of vegetable oil. Finally, a ½ cup of moo juice, and 1 egg. Beaten smooth. Now we fill a saucepan with about 2 inches of oil and get it hot. I'm using corn oil. Why? Because it's corn. Fire! About 375 Fahrenheit. Almost as hot as my cookbook. So these have been in the fridge. Woo! First we dredge in a bit of plain flour, then batter, then fry. Carefully drop. Fry until golden brown. Surprisingly, this is not an American creation. They were born of chippies across the United Kingdom. Oh boy. Whoa! But heavens above. I can only describe these as voluptuous. The Great Northern Nut Loaf from 49. Now, I'm not sure what makes this loaf northern. I just picked it because it has the most nuts I've ever seen. And I've seen my fair share. We start with nuts, which is unusual. In my experience, that normally comes last. We need 1 pound of mixed pecans and filberts. Filberts are hazelnuts, and they are my second favorite nut. My favorite doesn't come from a plant. Now we need to flour the nuts with 3/4 cup of flour. You know, I do prefer them defloured. A pinch of salt. Only a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. This is not going to rise, which is always embarrassing. Into a separate bowl goes 3/4 cup of brown sugar. 3 eggs. Beat with a whisk. Never tried that before. Sounds painful. Finally, a ½ pound of dried figs. You know, fruit and nuts do go hand in hand. I would know. I'm both. Combine the two. It's literally just nuts. 300 for 80 minutes. Done. Whoa. It's a great taste, nice and moist, but very crunchy. If you hate nuts, I can see you spitting it out. Not me. K2 defense biscuits from the Second World War. You know times must be tough when your biscuits start getting model numbers. Start with 25 grams of sugar, followed by 25 grams of a mild treacle. Next up is 50 grams of lard. Please get out of the box. Please exit. That was only its first form. 70 grams of milk powder. Mix. Now 200 grams of graham flour. Do you know how hard it is to find graham flour? Hard. 15 grams of wheat germ. Fresh wood chips. I've been told to keep this in the fridge so it stays disgusting for longer. Thank you again. Finally, a half teaspoon of salt. And a quarter teaspoon of bicarbonate. Come on! There we go. So these were a part of America's K-rations. Think of them like dystopian lunchboxes. Woo! Poke some holes in. $3.50 for about 15 minutes. What's that, Frank? You like my cookbook? He can't read. These are the very definition of sustenance. Bit like a dog biscuit, but I would take these over hardtack. Poor man's rice from 79. How do you make rice without rice? I say it's impossible, but our friends from the 70s disagree. We start with a third cup of water. I hate third cups. I don't have a reason and I don't need one. 3 egg geese. Water and eggs. How very rice-like. Pinch of salt. 2 cups of flour. I don't know where this is going either. Probably downhill. We're looking for a breadcrumb consistency. Not me. I'm looking for why. Thought rice was the poor man's food. I would know. I have a music degree. Time for hands. More flour if needed. What? Done. I think. I don't know. Now into a very large pot goes 3 quarts of water. Stock cubes. I'm using beef. Fire! Get in! It's like the world's worst oatmeal. Cook for 12 minutes. What? I don't... What? It's not unpleasant. It tastes like overcooked pasta. It feels like oatmeal and looks terrible. It evokes nothing of rice, and I don't know why this exists. Sunflower cookies from 74. So these were part of the hippie health food craze, which I didn't know was a thing. Seems they enjoyed baking in more than one sense of the word. To a half cup of butter goes a cup of brown sugar. Mix. In goes 2 egg geese. Half a cup of flour, a teaspoon of floof powder, and half a cup of wheat germ. Oh no. Move, Hollis. What's wheat germ? Nothing good. It has the pleasant taste of wood chips. Earthen. Yeah. Or let the set get all nice and miserable. The wheat germ just needs to swell up like an infection. Soaks up the butter and everyone's happiness. Next is 1.5 cups of shelled sunflower seeds. This is just bird seed. Food of the birds. Avian. Oh no. Do you have friends? Are they birds? Make this for them. Their little bird beaks and bird mouths will love it. Half cup of pumpkin seeds. Don't even chop them. No. You have to let their bird stomachs digest it. Feathery freaks. $3.50 for about 12 minutes. Now they can smell it. You know what birds can't do? Read my cookbook, as far as we know. These taste like a damp park bench. Sorry, hippies, I'm with Nixon on this one. Econo meatloaf from the Great Depression. Yes, this is a depression meatloaf, which happens to be what I call myself when I'm wrapped in blankets at 2 a.m. watching Netflix covered in Pop-Tart crumbs. But anyway, we start with 6 slices of bread, preferably like my dating life. Stale. Remove the crusts. If you're over the age of 6 and you still do this, good for you. Don't let anyone tell you how to eat. Move to a bowl. Save the crusts. Add a cup of oats and a can of evaporated milk. The meat remains unseen. Perhaps it's waiting for marriage. Pepper. 2 teaspoons of salt and a teaspoon of poultry seasoning. I'm not sure if anyone told you, but beef is a cow. You know the mooing? Time for just a pound of ground beef. Mix thoroughly. This is more grain than meat. Get in. Then we add ketchup. Press in the bread crusts. Railroad track looking Union Pacific meatloaf. And finally, more ketchup. Bake this in a moderate oven for an hour. That is unpleasant. It tastes like it's saving me money. Hard times. Irish soda bread from 1909. So you want bread and you want it now. Well, this is the loaf for you. We start with 4 cups of flour in a sifter. Come on, Frank, you lazy fish. Woo, get in. Next up, a heaping teaspoon of baking soda. Floof soda, you were made for this. And a teaspoon of salt. Yes, this is a sifter. This is a sieve, and I am pedantic. Next in, 2 cups of buttermilk. Now, if you don't have buttermilk, you could always go to the store. That's how stores work. I'm serious, don't disrespect the Irish. They can be mean. To mix, we must only use our hands. Don't worry, my hands are the only touch I know. Come on. Hello. Skillet. Flour. Then we bless the loaf. What do you mean? Did it sneeze? We just cut it. Now into a hot oven for 45 to 55 minutes. That's 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Whoa, look at that. Now we let it cool. If you don't have my cookbook, you could always use a cooling rack. Now that's just a plain good loaf. What's up, Frank? Come on. A wacky cake from the Great Depression. So the stock market's crashed and we can't afford any butter, eggs, or milk, but little Johnny still wants a cake for his birthday. Selfish brat. Directly into a cake pan goes a cup and a half of flour, a teaspoon of floof soda. Bloop. One of the reasons this is called a wacky cake is because you don't need a bowl. Though living in the Depression, I think everyone needed a bowl. A cup of sugar, a third of a cup of cuckoo. Then we just mix it with a fork. Now we make 3 wells. I feel like a gardener. Do you guys remember Farmville? Those were the days. Into one well goes 2 tablespoons of vinegar. Next, a third of a cup of oil. Nilla. And finally, a whole cup of water. Just mix it in the pan. Bake this at 350 for about a half hour. Ooh, it's a cake! Cool completely in the pan. For the frosting, we need a cup of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of cuckoo, then slowly add water until thick. Beautiful. What? How did that not stick? Are you a witch? Yes! That's a darn good cake. Ranch from 67. Come to think of it, I've never really thought about what's in ranch. Perhaps out of fear. Start with a half cup of buttermilk and a half cup of sour cream. Time for lactose! You know, I once watched a friend of mine eat a whole bottle of ranch with his pizza. Yeah, he's in prison now. Next up, a half cup of mayonnaise. A half teaspoon of garlic powder, onion powder, and pepper. 3, 2, 1. 2 tablespoons of dried parsley. Forsaken by parsley. Never saw that coming. Just a pinch of salt and a teaspoon of dried dill weed. What did you call me? Oh, for boop. Mix to the fridge. Psst, you want a sneak peek at my cookbook? That's it. Now that it's rested, we can serve. Suppose it was too tired before. That's good. No joke, that's great. One sec. I think you'd like this. Ranch, baby. Cheese cookies from 81. Call me crazy, but I believe that cookies should be sweet, a dessert, a treat. This isn't that. No, our friends from the 80s have come up with a savory appetizer cookie, so we start by melting 2 sticks of oleo. This stuff also goes by the name of margarine, or wrong. Then a half pound of sharp cheddar. Mr. Cheese, I'm so sorry. Sloppy. A teaspoon of red pepper flakes. Worcestershire. A tablespoon of Tabasco. And 2 cups. Plus 2 cups. I can't say it. Rice Krispies. I have never seen anything like this. Finally, a pinch of salt and 2 cups of flour. Bake at 350 until golden brown. Oh, no. That's not right. Spicy and cakey and crunchy. Just eat cheese. A dirt cake from 89. There are gummy worms. Start with 2 small packs of vanilla pudding. Get it! Plus 3 cups of moo juice. Step 1 is to beat together 8 ounces of cream cheese and a half cup of butter. What do you mean step 1? What about this? Is the pudding related or did you just want a snack? In goes a cup and a half of powdered sugar. So we're making cream cheese frosting. We don't have a cake, but don't worry, we have pudding. Next we fold in a tub of Cool Whip. Okay, we no longer have frosting. Next we fold in the pudding! Now we no longer have pudding or frosting. We have, well, actually, I don't know what this is. Now we need a pack of Oreos. Oh, for f***'s sake. Don't worry, we don't get to enjoy them. They just get a summary execution. Downshift! Assemble in layers. Oh. Finally, we half bury the worms. Sentences that should never be in a cookbook. I mean, come on, really? It's just American. Chill. While you wait, you can pre-order my cookbook, Baking Yesteryear. That's sugar. This will make kids go feral. Little Johnny's gonna put his tricycle in the Indy 500. It's actually really good. Leftover bread pancakes from 1947. Now I love pancakes, so a homemade recipe which is easy, needs no flour, and lets you use up some stale bread seems too good to be true. Let's see if it is. We start with 7 or 8 slices of stale bread. Just tear it up and put it in a bowl. Adding to it 3/4 of a cup of milk. Moo juice! Time to mash! Next, a pinch of salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar. They recommend 4 if these are for kids. Can I be a kid, please? Next is 1 teaspoon of floof powder, which is baking powder. I call it floof powder because it floofs. Finally, 1 egg. Beating thoroughly. A bit of oil. Fire! Then you just 3 minutes on each side on medium-high heat. Ooh, smell really good. That is good. They're so fluffy. Some good pancakes. I'm not even gonna wait for my bread to go stale. I'm just gonna make these. snickerdoodles from 1918. No, I have never had these. You must remember, I'm not an American. I am a Bermudian, and we grew up with things like party rings and custard creams. Until yesterday, I thought a snickerdoodle was a dog. Start with a cup of shortening. In goes a pinch of salt and a cup and a half of sugar. Cream. Next, we beat in 2 eggies. I just love eggies. For the dry ingredients, we need 2 3/4 cups of flour, a teaspoon of floof soda, not powder. I think it's underlined for a reason. Finally, we need 3 teaspoons of cream of tartar. Good heavens. That's excessive. 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, hi. Roll to bolts. Goodbye, bolts. Moderate oven for 11 minutes. Means 350 Fahrenheit. They just hadn't invented numbers yet. Also, I seem to have a book. They're poofy. Dredge them through a half cup of sugar with 3 tablespoons of cinnamon. Pillowy. They're like sugar cookies, but comfier. Very good. A chocolate beet cake from 66. Now look, I'm no stranger to cakes with bizarre ingredients, but I think the use of pickled beets is the most unorthodox. We start by blending our 15-ounce can of pickled beets. Juice and all, honey. There seems to have been a murder. Now into a bowl goes a half cup of vegetable oil, 1 1/2 cups of sugar, a bit of vanilla, 3 eggs. Whisk vigorously. In go the beets. Oh, it's pink. For the dry ingredients, we need 2 cups of flour, 1/3 of a cup of cocoa, pinch of salt, and a teaspoon of baking soda. But there's no acid. Oh, the beets! They might be onto something. Get in. Fold. Oh, it's like velvet. About 50 minutes at 375. For the ganache, we need a half cup of cream and 4 ounces of chocolate over very low heat. Fire! Just until the chocolate melts and everything is smooth. Oh my. Son of a... It's fantastic. Beets? What's next? A trench cake from World War I. In the Great War, people dug holes and threw things at each other. It's a bit like a children's sandbox, just with an abundance of missing limbs. Start with 8 ounces of flour, to which we rub in 4 ounces of margarine. Ugh. To be fair, my only real issue with margarine is its existence. Also, do notice how we don't mix cakes like this anymore, because we're no longer daft. In goes 3 ounces of brown sugar, followed by 2 teaspoons of cocoa. Ah, yes. The LaCroix method of adding flavor. Just enough to make you realize what you don't have. Half teaspoon of nutmeg, and ginger, plus 3 ounces of currants. Ounces are my least favorite unit, unlike my cookbook, which is an absolute unit. Finally, we need a 1/4 pint of moo juice. Give me a normal measurement. A teaspoon of white vinegar and a half teaspoon of bicarbonate. Bicarbonate? Think you'll push. Oh, thick. Moderate oven for about an hour. It's not awful, but it is sad. If someone said that to me in the trenches, I would give up. Tomato aspic from 1939. Yes, this is arguably the most infamous dish of the 20th century. At one point, it was on every menu from coast to coast. We start with 3 cups of stewed tomatoes, then an onion. What is the size of this onion? This thing's heavier than my self-doubt. 1 celery stalk. Slicey slice. And now for the most pointless herb, the bay leaf. I think of these like small men. You'd have a hard time telling whether it's in or not. A pinch of salt and sugar, plus a single clove. So what are you doing tonight? Into a pot. Fire! Cooking for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, we soak 2 tablespoons of gelatin in a half cup of water. Now we strain this to remove any trace of resin from the dish. And the gelatin. I don't like the look of this at all. To the fridge. What do you think we garnish this with? Did you guess mayo? Stop jiggling. And some paprika. This is just a commendably daft idea. It tastes like somebody killed Italy. It's like geriatric ketchup. Bacon grease chocolate chip cookies from 53. Now, I don't need to tell you how much we love bacon, and when it's cooked, it renders out a fair bit of liquid gold, which theoretically can be used in baking just like butter. Start by frying a pound of bacon. Bacon is always a good idea. Fire! Just like pre-ordering my new cookbook, Baking Yesteryear. Hi, bacon. Was that too forward? Sorry, I'm just excited. You know, they say bacon clogs your arteries. I said, yeah, with what? Bacon. We need a half cup. Perfect. Now into a bowl with a half cup of sugar, half cup of brown sugar, 1 egg, vanilla, and whisk. If your grease is solid, melt it. Sorry, it's the bacon and the vanilla. The dry ingredients, we just need 2 cups of flour, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. Then we bring it all together with a big cup of chalky chips. We can add moo juice if it's too dry. Oh, this is good. Chill. 350 for around 12 minutes. You smell amazing. Oh my God. Salty, sweet, bacon, chocolatey, chewy. It's dark magic. Ambrosia. Ambrosia from 1951. So mid-century America has produced many suspect salads, many of which continue to leak out of the angsty states of Wisconsin and Minnesota. However, Ambrosia is arguably the one that started them all, the pioneer, if you will, and today we're going to see if that's a good thing. Start by draining 1.5 pounds of mandarin oranges, a pound of maraschino cherries, and 20 ounces of pineapple. Time for 1.3 cups of cream whipped. Keep in mind this is a salad. Yes! I like to whip cream by hand. It's a lot more intimate. Now in goes 1/2 cup of sour cream and 1/2 cup of coconut. Chop the cherries and 1 cup of walnuts. Sure. Walnuts aren't my favorite, but I've been known to never turn down a nut. In goes the cherries, pineapple, mix. Just like me, the mandarin oranges are a delicate fruit, so they go in last. You know, this actually looks pretty good. To the fridge. Once you're ready to serve, you fold in 2 cups of marshmallows to the salad. This has to be the most 50s thing ever. You know what? I like this one. It's quite pleasant. A Jell-O poke cake from '79. So there's 2 crazy things about this cake. One being, well, it's a cake with Jell-O set inside of it. Second being, it's found in my new cookbook, Baking Yesteryear, coming out this July everywhere books are sold. What? Yeah, this is not a joke. This is a book announcement. You should pre-order. Start with 3/4 cup of vegetable oil, 1.5 cups of sugar, 4 eggs. Oh, the nerve! I know what I'm doing. I have a cookbook. Whisk. Dry ingredients are 2¼ cups of flour, pinch of salt, a teaspoon of floof powder. Then we alternate mixing dry to wet with a cup of mood juice. Done! Then into a 9x13, 350 for about a half hour. Then over 3 ounces of any flavored Jell-O goes a cup of boiling water. This is the first time I'm using raspberry. So it's been an hour and both of these have cooled down, so now we stab. But you never stabbed a cake before. Here we go. To the fridge. Good morning. Top with whipped cream. That's a darn good cake. Cowboy cookies from '65. Now I'm familiar with cookies and I'm quite familiar with cowboys. I went to the University of Wyoming. Go Pokes! So let's bake their cookies. We start by toasting 1 cup of coconut, cup of pecans, and 2 cups of rolled oats. What? I've never thought to toast oats. 8 minutes at 350. Next we have 1 cup of butter, cup of brown sugar, and 1 cup of sugar. This recipe is so even. How nice. Cream. And 2 eggs. Mix. Oh, toasty. For the dry ingredients, we have 2 cups of flour and a mere teaspoon of baking soda. Fold. In goes all of the toasties. Plus 2 cups of chalky chips. So much stuff. Cause the Western folks all know. About 11 minutes at 350. These are highfalutin. Hold on. Good? Very. Lard nuts from 1909. Now, if you're in my line of work, chances are you handle a great deal of nuts. It simply comes with the territory and it's a great perk. However, lard nuts do not sound appealing. They sound contagious. Start with 4 cups of flour, mixed with 1 cup of sugar, plus 5 teaspoons of nutmeg. This lady's spicy. Putting the nut in lard nuts. Now we whisk with a fork. You know, they invented a tool for that. It's called a whisk. Next, we rub in 1/2 pound of lard with the hands. I hate this. Next up is 3 eggs beaten. Put them up. Mixed in again with the hands. Lady loves her digits. Now we roll to balls. So if you're not sure what a nut is, you're too young. They can be any cookie with a stiff spiced dough, usually finished with a nut, which is how most of us finish. 300 until browned. High. They taste a bit like mothballs or like an old handkerchief. A poor man's cake from the Great Depression. The Depression was bad, right? People were crawling around on all fours in their yards eating dandelions. No, that's not an exaggeration. Those who were better off, like Ruth here, came up with recipes like this. Though bless her heart, she couldn't spell raisins. That's okay, Ruth. We start by cooking 1 cup of said raisins with 2 cups of water. Fire! We're boiling this until it reduces by half. Then we beat in a whole cup of shortening. I mean, I think that's a little excessive. In goes 1 egg. Plus a teaspoon each of ground cloves, allspice, and cinnamon. Ruth, I don't think that's gonna help. Finally, we add 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 2 cups of flour. Oh, this does not look right. There are no baking instructions at all, so we're just gonna do 350 for Lord knows how long. About 45 minutes. Did you notice there was no sugar? My legs are shaking, and not in the good way. Well, that tastes like a diagnosis. That is severe. Peanut butter onions from the Great Depression. Like kissing women, stuffing onions full of peanut butter feels rather unnatural to me, but I suppose desperate times call for desperate measures. Start by French revolutioning our onions. Now you can use any type of onion, but I use the round ones, the only type I can find. We need to create a flat bottom. Let me get some reference. Perfect! Time to scoop out the middle. Oh, boy, this onion's strong. A military grade. God damn. Woo! Okay, now that we have a hole in our onion and we look like we've just come from a wake, we need to stuff it. For that, we need a 1/4 cup of peanut butter, mixed with half as much breadcrumbs. Why? I suppose it is called the Great Depression for a reason. You know, I don't typically stuff vegetables. Mix! Much prefer stuffing fruit. Do we really just bake this? We do. $3.75 for an hour. A presentable dish. Honey, this has a face made for radio. Closed casket funeral. It's not so much bad as it is unsettling. Simply just no need to do any of this. Magic peanut butter cookies from '84. These are 3-ingredient cookies, which means I have some serious doubts. Because a normal cookie contains butter, milk, salt, baking powder, flour. This recipe just says no. We start with 1 cup of peanut butter, a 1/2 cup of sugar, plus 1 egg, and that's it. This is not how you make cookies. Just roll them out. Then cross them with a fork. There's no way. This is gonna end up a melted tray of peanut butter. $3.50 for 10 minutes. No, come on. How? You cheated. These are brilliant. Melt in your mouth, brilliant. Here I was thinking I knew how baking worked. It's not fair. Boiled cookies from 1953. Now these were called boiled cookies because you boiled the ingredients. The 50s was a time of blossoming creativity. Today they are known as no-bakes, which is also the drug testing policy of anyone employed by the government. First up, we need a skillet. Do you all call this a frying pan or a skillet? I call it Steve. In goes a 1/2 cup of butter. 2 cups of sugar. Calories don't count on Christmas. 1/2 cup of moon juice. Yes, you can put liquid in dry measures. Volume doesn't change. Fight me. 3 tablespoons of potted cocoa. Now we bring this to the boil and then let it boil for precisely 1 minute. Fire! You've never been there, have you? New positions are fun. It's boiling. Beep. Done! Now we remove from heat and quickly add in a cup of peanut butter, a bit of vanilla, and 3 cups of quick oats. Then mix. Scoop onto wax paper and let them dry. They are firm. Judging by how they smell, I might be too. Whoa, man! They're like candy. Good cookie. Copycat Almond Joys from 1953. Yes, copycat recipes are nothing new, and neither are Almond Joys. In fact, one Mrs. Kirk from Montgomery, Alabama loved them so much she wanted to make them herself. Let's go, honey. We start with an entire 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, to which we add 2 cups of powdered sugar. Mix. Then comes 4 cups of unsweetened coconut. That's a lot. Come on. Then press it into a large parchment-lined pan. I'm using a 13 by 9 inch, but you could use anything similar, like a casserole dish. Once everything's flat and even, you're gonna need some almonds. You just line them up and press them in. This is so satisfying. Now this goes to the fridge, preferably overnight. It just needs to be really hard. Ooh, cut. Yes. Now 4 cups of chocolate and 2 teaspoons of shortening or coconut oil, melting over a double boiler. Fire! Then dip and cover. Hello! Done! Let them set. On the money. Look at that. We did that. Mrs. Kirk, you're my hero. An asparagus cake from 1980. You know, I don't make these things up. They legitimately get printed in cookbooks for reasons I've yet to fathom. Our kitchen to yours. You can keep it. First, we need 2 cups of grated asparagus. This is food for sheep and people who do yoga. Next is a 1.5 cups of vegetable oil, orange rind, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, vanilla asparagus. Really? 8 ounces of crushed pineapple and the juice. Sorry, pineapple, vanilla asparagus. My bad. 3 eggs. The dry ingredients are 3 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar, pinch of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, cinnamon, and a 1.5 cups of chopped nuts. Mix. Terror guacamole. Bad, bad. An hour at 350. Woo! So heavy. Powdered sugar, orange, moon juice. Woo! So it's a nice moist cake, but it's flavored like the underneath of a lawnmower. It's earthy. It's not quite right. Coconut ice from 61. Now, it's come to my attention that a lot of Americans don't like coconut, and you know what? It's okay to be wrong. But this here is an old school British candy which looks too simple to be good. We begin with a 15-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk. Half of it goes in one bowl, the other half in another. Then into each bowl goes a cup of powdered sugar. My sweet tooth is tingling. Mix. Then we dye one bowl pink by using a few drops of red food coloring. Boop. You know, as a kid, I've always loved pink, which was the first of many signs, and a little bit of Nilla. Finally, to each bowl goes 2 cups of coconut flakes. Don't use sweetened. You will kill somebody. 1, 2. Then to an 8-inch parchment-lined pan goes the first layer. Gotta pack it tight. Then the second. This is fun. And that's it. Pop it in the fridge for at least 3 hours to set. Ooh. Oh my goodness. These are just lovely. What do you think?
There's no ice in these.
The perfect summer candy. Almond milk from 1965. Now, I didn't know you could just make almond milk until I found it in the miscellaneous section of this here encyclopedia, and lo and behold, our first step was to cover a cup of almonds in cold water overnight. Good night. Good morning. Then we discard the water. Put the almonds in a blender, adding to it 4 cups of fresh water. Then we blend for about 3 minutes. Yeah, it's milky. Now we need to strain this to prevent bits of nuts from getting into the milk. You could use a tea towel or some cheesecloth, or something literally called a nut milk bag, though that's normally used to prevent children. This feels familiar. And bam, that's almond milk. I thought it was a lot more complicated than that. If you want it sweetened, add some sugar. If you want vanilla, add a bit of Nilla. I mean, it's almond milk. Good almond milk. So if you have some almonds in a blender, go to town. Ginger nuts from 1906. Now, I've never seen a ginger nut, but I assume it's roughly the same as a blonde or a brunette. Fittingly, these nuts begin with a good pound of flour, pinch of salt, 3 ounces of sugar, teaspoon of soda, and ½ an ounce of ginger. Woo! She's gonna be spicy. Now, to a saucepan, we add 4 ounces of butter, plus ½ pound of any treacle. I would call that excessive. Fire! Once the butter is melted, we add ½ a gill of milk. What is a gill? A gill is 32 fluid drams. Well, thank God for that. When has the avoir du pois system helped anybody? We need a 1/4 cup. Moon juice! In we go! Mix. We knead in flour until stiff. Come on! Roll to balls. And what are balls without nuts? Bake in a quick oven for about 7 minutes. That'll be 400 degrees. Hello? Okay. I see you. It is a snapless, rotund ginger snap. It's like what ginger beer is to ginger ale, just in cookie form. Good cookie. A pinto bean cake from 55. I don't even know what to say about this one. We start by draining 2 27-ounce cans of pinto beans. So I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Now we put 1½ cups of peanuts through a grind-o-mat. Where did the peanuts come from? What's a grind-o-mat? Are you alright? Put the beans in the grind-o-mat. This is not, how can I say, right? Oh no! Ay, señor. Quesadilla total en la cocina. 3/4 of a cup of honey. To this baby food looking refried funeral? How did you come up with these ingredients? Did you just throw a grenade down aisle 6? 5 egg teeth. Now the chickens are implicated. What is this? Make sure to clean your grind-o-mat. I'm not concerned about your precious grind-o-mat. Lastly, we have ½ a cup of melted butter and 2 teaspoons of floof powder. Yeah, good luck with that. Only thing this is gonna rise up from is the dead. Catastrophe de bonen. 45 minutes at 375. What? It's a cake. How? You have no right! Soft, dense, rich? No! This is phenomenal. Macaroni biscuits from World War II. So during the turn of the 40s, there was this strange trend of people putting disturbing ingredients into dinner biscuits. Whether it was the product of wartime rations, personal taste, or consanguineous marriage remains a mystery. First step is to cook a ½ cup of macaroni. Fire! Meanwhile, our dry ingredients are 2 cups of flour, 1/4 cup of sugar, teaspoon of salt, plus 5 teaspoons of baking powder. God damn. This is the Josh Groban treatment. You can fire these from a mortar. Y'all got me making ballistic biscuits. Strain! Wet ingredients are 3 tablespoons of melted shortening, a cup of moon juice, 1 egg, and the macaroni. Combine the 2, mix. Boop. We got the muffin biscuits. ½ hour at 400. Oh boy! Woo. What? Oh, there's something wrong here. There seems to be macaroni in my biscuit. Precisely what you think it would be. Feels like brains. Ice cream cream bread from 78. Now I think the best way to eat ice cream is to eat it straight from the tub. However, like the first time I got up close with a man, this recipe has me second guessing. This recipe comes from a cookbook called Cookbook. They were very bright. We're gonna need 2 cups of full-fat ice cream. None of that healthy stuff. What are you trying to do, live longer? Now before we dive in, we need to wait for this to get soft, which is the opposite of what we're used to, depending on what you're diving into. 1, 2. Next we beat in 1.5 cups of flour, plus 1.5 teaspoons of floof powder. Boop. Well, this is unorthodox. And then into a greased loaf pan. Is that it? I'm not gonna tell you, oh, there's no way this is gonna work, because it makes sense, doesn't it? Ice cream has your sugar, your flavor, your fat, your dairy, everything. I've just never thought to come up with it. Now it says we can add sprinkles for the children. Screw that. This is for me. What do you take me for? Grown? Ah, look it! Bake at 350 for about 45 minutes. Just check yours with a toothpick. Ooh, ooh. Oh man, Frank. Perfectly sweet and soft and marvelous. Cornstarch cookies from 1919. These go by many names, like starchies, meltaways, and in Brazil where they originate, sequilhos. But they're one of the OG gluten-free 3-ingredient cookies. We start with 1/2 cup of sweetened condensed milk, followed by 1/2 cup of soft butter. Beat vigorously. Then using the handle of a spoon, we slowly stir in 2 cups of cornstarch. What precisely does this accomplish? Trust the process. This is a strange trifecta of ingredients. I'm intrigued. Now we bake in a slow oven for 15 to 20 minutes. We'll do 325 Fahrenheit. Perfect. These are so cute. Well, you know, in a world of similar cookies, these are something quite special. They're like a cloud of joy. Incredibly unique. 2-ingredient pumpkin quickies from 65. Yes, it's officially pumpkin season, which means people are whipping out the boots with the fur and trying to snag any wayward bachelor within 100 meters. But it also means baking! First is a 15-ounce can of pumpkin. Release the gourd. And the last ingredient is a box of spice cake mix. Pioneered in 1951 by Mr. Duncan Hines. This is him right here. He looks like if you get a tattoo, you'll be written out of the will. Missionary only type of guy. Now we just mix. Well, these definitely are quickies. And I would know. Like draft dodgers, I don't see much action. That's why I'm called Drive-By Dylan. 350 for roughly 12 minutes. But just watch them. Whoa! Cookie! A traditional cookie? No. Soft, cakey, and very pleasant, yes. Your pumpkin spice is already in here. You just added the pumpkin. Is it cheating? Yes. But cheating tastes good. Peanut butter soup from 1941. So this cookbook was put out by the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company to make sure people were getting adequate nutrition during the war. And this soup here is apparently the perfect meal when it comes to ideal macronutrient intake. We've come a long way in 80 years. Into a saucepan, we start by melting 5 tablespoons of lard. You know, in the story of my life, lard is the closest thing I've ever had to an nemesis. Fire! Once the lard is melted, we make a roux by whisking in 5 tablespoons of flour. Now that we've got some color, we mix in a 12-ounce can of evaporated milk, diluting it with the same amount of water. Finally, we have a pinch of salt and just 1/2 cup of peanut butter. Get in! This is thick. Today we're serving up hot beige. Come get your bowl of brown. I don't understand. This dish has no idea what it's trying to be. It is confused. It isn't terrible. It's just an unfortunate way to consume peanut butter. Glorified rice from 1909. We start by cooking a cup of rice. Fire! Are you ready for glory? Cool down the rice gently. Opposed to what? What am I gonna use, a leaf blower? Now for 8 ounces of pineapple and 8 ounces of candied cherries. But there's rice. We quarter the cherries in half. Quarter the cherries? You're gonna make me stroke out. Precisely what realm of mathematics do you inhabit? Finally, we need a cup of heavy cream. I don't like where this is going. And 1/2 cup of powdered sugar. Then we gently whip this stiff again with the gently. How do you gently whip cream, you tart? It's like saying gently have a car accident. Then you just fold everything together. Get in. Oh, not the rice. What is this? To the fridge. Now I'm told that this stuff is still brought to potlucks in the Midwest. Oh dear. I find that remarkably uncomfortable. People still bring this to functions for consumption. That would give me consumption. Magic beer bread from '84. Now most breads are risen by yeast, those lovely little things that make your bread all fluffy and puffy like a cat in heat. But this recipe is a quick bread, something which doesn't have any yeast, but promises to taste like it does. We begin with a 12-ounce can or bottle of your choice of brew.
Oh, this is my type of baking.
Just make sure it's not cold. Then we just add 3 cups of flour.
Oh, it's foamy.
3 tablespoons of sugar. 3 teaspoons of baking powder. And finally, a good pinch of salt. Now we just go to town with our hands. Rings are coming off. That's how you knew you were in trouble.
Oh, hello.
Get off.
Then into a greased loaf pan. Flatten it out. Then in this goes to a cold, unpreheated oven. Sacrilegious! Set the temperature to 350 and bake for about an hour. Is this the magic part? Do a trick!
Woo, not exactly a pretty loaf of bread.
Whoa. But it don't need to be pretty.
Because that's pretty darn good.
The beer offers all that lovely sour taste that you'd expect from yeast. For a dead simple, easy, cheap bread, that is a winner. Magic cookie bars from '63. So this recipe is so dead simple that even Frank could do it. Hear that, Frank? Yeah, you're dumb as rocks. We start by placing a half cup of margarine or butter in a 13x9 pan. I'm using butter because I have standards. Do I? Pop this into a 350-degree oven just until it's melted. Oh boy! Then you just evenly dump in a cup and a half of graham cracker crumbs, a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, 2 cups of chalky chips, a cup of coconut flakes, and finally a cup of chopped nuts. Frank, what nuts do we use? We gonna use Brazil nuts. They don't get enough love, and I'm a lover of all nuts.
Get in.
Bake at 350 for about a half hour. Hello. You gotta let it cool. Oh yes, these will do just fine. I mean, look at them. For something that is just dumped in a pan, that is bloody genius and tastes brilliant. A Coca-Cola salad from the 70s. So this recipe has been floating around the internet for quite some time now, and people seem to think it's from the 50s, but it's not. It's more so typical of the 70s or the 80s or a psychopath. We start with 1 package of cream cheese, into which we dust a package of orange Jell-O.
Yeah, that really does say that. That.
Oh no. Some high-vis cheese, Department of Transportation certified. Next we take 10 ounces of Coke and we boil it. Fire! This is a very disturbing way to spend a day. Oh, I'm scared. Just what I was feeling for lunch. Carbonated orange cheese gravy.
Look away.
Lastly, we have a half cup of nuts. At least the recipe is self-aware. So we leave this at room temperature for a bit. Then to the fridge. Good morning. That's a lie.
Oh.
So first and foremost, it is disturbing. Quite. But the potential is there. Because it has this cheesecake vibe. And the flavors are okay. It's just been corrupted. A seafood mousse from 1972. So they describe this dish as an elegant and fancy way to elevate family dinners. However, upon first glance, I would describe it as an ornate pile of sh. Start with a cup and a half of canned crab. I love crab in a can. Yay! Why does it have a diaper? Is the crab diaper integral to this dish? Well, you never know. Cup of celery. Celery, if water was a vegetable. Marinate this in some lemon juice, Tabasco, Worcestershire, my car on a cold morning, Worcestershire sauce, salt, and onion powder. Now atop a double boiler, we melt 8 ounces of cream cheese in a can of tomato soup. Fire! Now to a cup of water goes 3 packets of gelatin. You knew this was coming. It's like watching a car crash. We move this to an ice bath. Once it's thickened, we fold in a cup of mayonnaise. Whatever you think elevate means is wrong. Finally, our crab. It's just morbid. To the fridge. That's fancy, all right. Fancy feast. Some good cat food. A+. Deep fried Oreos from 2001. Now, is this an old recipe? Well, it depends on who you ask. But it is absurd, vulgar, and without regard for culinary decorum. It's American. Our batter begins with 1 cup of pancake mix. Get out of the cup. Come on. Stop being difficult. Half a cup of milk. Moo juice. Tablespoon of vegetable oil. And 1 egg. Whisk vigorously. Is my clock dead? It is now. Next up, we fill a pot about 4 inches deep with oil. Fire! Now our oil is hot, so we just dip in our Oreos. Woo! And in they go. About 3 minutes on each side. This is so ridiculous.
Woo! Oh man.
Oh. These are incredible. I mean, look at that. You're insane, but I love you. I'm a changed man. Absolutely wild. Velveeta fudge from 1984. There are a lot of ways to make fudge, most of which aren't as problematic as this, but then again, who are we to fault the 80s? Start with a cup of butter in a heavy pan. I reckon this is a heavy pan. Heavy with the burden of whatever crime it is I'm going to commit. We melt that down with a half 1/2 pound of Velveeta. Neither scientist nor scholar knows precisely what Velveeta is. It is the occult, the great unknown. Fire! Well, this is already critically disturbing. In goes 1/2 cup of cocoa powder. It's cheesy. Next up is 2 pounds of powdered sugar. Hold on. Yes, I see. It's the whole bag. Now, I'm no mathematician, but I'm not sure how this whole bag's gonna fit in here, Mildred. Her name is Mildred. This is not gonna work. It's not. Oh, no way. Oh, it's alive. Ooh. Finally, you take off the heat and add in some Nilla. Oh, it's like a tumor. To the fridge. Ooh. Man, that's a good fudge. Ice cream cone cupcakes from 79. Now you'd think that ice cream cones are for ice cream, but nope. This is the 70s. We do what we want. We start with 1/2 cup of vegetable oil, a cup of sugar, teaspoon of Nilla, and 1 egg. Then you whisk vigorously. For the dry ingredients, we have a 1.5 cups of flour, 1/2 cup of cocoa, and a teaspoon of floof soda, baking soda. Then we alternate adding our dry ingredients with a 1/2 cup of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, you could always buy it. Mix. And finally, a 1/2 cup of hot water. Oh boy. We fill these up about 2/3 of the way, and they need to have a flat bottom, like me. Get it! Whoa! 350 for about 30 minutes. Hello! For the buttercream, we just beat a 1/2 cup of soft butter, slowly adding a cup of powdered sugar, and some Nilla.
Yes, you can make buttercream by hand. I do everything by hand. I'm very lonely.
Look at that. It's just a really tasty, fun idea.
I love it.
Tang cookies from 1969. Hey! Now this recipe is from Nebraska. Nebraska, are you okay? We begin with 3/4 of a cup of Tang. Might I remind you that this is a cookie with drink mix. Followed by a 1/2 cup of sugar. Any dentists out there? 2 eggs. And 2/3 of a cup of vegetable oil. That's a choice. Whisk. Gee, this sure is vibrant. Nebraska! Now the dry ingredients are dry. 2 cups of flour. 2 teaspoons of floof powder. And a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I expected Nebraskans to be saltier since they live in Nebraska. Combine. Mix. 350 for about 12 to 15 minutes. I know. Oh, I know. Nebraska. They are quirky, but not bad. It's tangy. I would bake them a little less though, like 10 to 12 minutes. But thank you, Nebraska. Ice cream coleslaw from 1973. Now, I don't precisely know the nature of the dystopian demons that must have been inhabiting the minds of the people of the 1970s, but they must have been severe enough as to cause this abomination. We begin with 3 cups of shredded cabbage. You know, cabbage is one of those things. I have nothing else to add. Next is 8 ounces of whipped topping. That's one way to spice things up. We don't shame anybody here. Now, 20 ounces of crushed pineapple. Did I mention this was in the kids' recipe section? Yeah. This is why we hate cabbage. Very bad. Finally, we have a pinch of salt and 2 tablespoons of white vinegar. You, ma'am, are motivated by anger and anger alone. Now we let this chill for about 2 hours or enough time to sell your possessions and flee the state. I feel like I'm waiting to be hanged. All right. It tastes like how a dentist office smells. Broken dreams and scattered screams. That's the product of an ill mind. Scotcheroos from 1965. So Rice Krispie treats were invented all the way back in 1939 at the Kellogg's Company in Battle Creek, Michigan, and have since become the most dominant Rice Krispie confection. But 26 years later, they came up with these, a lesser-known variant, which we are going to try today. In a big old pan, we're gonna need a cup of corn syrup, followed by a cup of sugar. Excessive. Fire! Bring this to a boil to create a cavity-inducing syrup. Charming. Next, we remove from heat and add in a cup of peanut butter. Mix. Then in goes 5 cups of Rice Krispies. You know, I've never understood America's obsession with breakfast cereals. Whatever was wrong starting your middle school mornings crying over a sad bowl of oatmeal? That was character building. Good old liquid cardboard. Anyway, this is rather dense. In this goes to a 13x9. Just cooperate. While that's cooling, we melt a cup of butterscotch chips and a cup of chalky chips over a double boiler. Melt, you get! Just spread it on and cool completely. Yes! Mmm, these are good. These are better than Rice Krispie treats. Chow mein cookies from 1968. Now, I'm down for chow mein noodles and I'm down for cookies, but I mean, common sense says that they shouldn't necessarily go together. Or do they? We start with 6 ounces of chalky chips, which is a little more than a cup, plus 6 ounces of butterscotch chips. We're off to a good start. Now we simply melt this over a double boiler. Fire! Then we remove from heat and add in 5 ounces of chow mein noodles. You see, this is where you lose me, because I think this is troubling, like clinically. Or you were subject to a fall from a great height. Trying to say you're a little messed up, Teresa from Memphis, Tennessee. And a half cup of salted peanuts. Some crunch for your trauma. Mix until you cry, then you just dollop onto some wax paper to cool while you think about your life choices. Here we have some choice piles of excrement. Yeah, this is just a good idea. The smooth chocolate and the butterscotch with the salty crunch of the noodles and the peanuts, yes.